going to be dead. And so here's the thing to remember is that yes, card advantage matters, but as he put it, Matt Landstrom was like, this is a tempo match, and they can die and have a handful of cards. That's fine. So, maybe I should put it the other way. They can have a handful of cards if they're dead. It's fine with me.
So here we are going to round 11 of the SCGINVI Invitational. And Jim Davis on your right playing Goblins, Edgar Flores on your left playing a cool little Esper Blade deck. It's got Stoneforge Mystic, Chromox, Thoughtseize, Mental Misstep, Brainstorm, Bitter Blossom, Dark Confidant. Really, really cool stuff.
Now, Jim Davis has been on Goblins for quite a long
Jim
time.
Davis is Jim Davis is the Goblins as Alex Bertoncini is the Merfolk. Like, he knows how to play Goblins really well. So it's
players in the first draft open.
Pretty awesome. Let's see. It'd be great to watch him play this mono red deck. So he Thoughtseizes away Aether Vial.
Now Lackey, such a great card. Lackey and Goblins in general have been really hurt by the inclusion of Mental Misstep into the format.
Yep.
And earlier, just moments ago when I was talking with Chapin, he said that he thinks that Mental Misstep is going to kill Legacy.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that is quite the claim.
That looks to me like a snow-covered mountain. Ice Age snow-covered mountain.
It's certainly an Ice Age mountain. I don't know if it's snow covered or not, but it looks snow covered. Is
like
that snow covered?
There is another mountain in the Ice Age block that has snow on it, but that's the mountain I play. When I play Magic.
So you would know that
That's
one.
a snow covered mountain.
Okay, fair enough. I believe you. Well, if you cast a Gift Guide, be prepared. All right, so down comes Tundra. So Edgar Flores now has all his colors of mana available. Stoneforge Mystic. Oh, Dark Confidant. That's a good one too. Alright, draws his card. Alright, got Goblin Matron as card he plucks.
Looks like a second land there. Is that a Scalding Tarn?
Yeah, that is a Scalding Tarn. And he's going to crack it, getting another mountain. And then what 2-drop does he have here? Is that a pile driver? What is it that he has?
I couldn't see what the 2-drop was. I saw him with a Matron, but I couldn't tell what else there was.
Let's see what he's going to play then.
There's looks like another Lackey.
Yep, that's a Lackey.
Interesting that he sacrifices the land at that point. Perhaps because he imagines Stifle might be possible.
Yeah, I mean,
the Dark Confidant could indicate that there's some sort of, not Team America because of the color combination, but some sort of, you know, sinkhole Stifle is possible.
Right. I mean, you don't want to accidentally run into Stifle. Plus, it thins your deck a little bit, which could be relevant.
Yeah.
You don't want to crack it after a Ringleader or something, right? So.
Brainstorm followed by a Flooded Strand.
Okay.
Magic players, we just need one more player in the first $10 draft of the day. So if you'd like to
think about his play. Now, what's there in Edgar's hand right now?
Open event stage where
I can't make out anything. Is that? It looks like maybe a Batter Skull in his hand. Maybe a Swords to Plowshares.
I thought it was a G-tape, but it's probably just hallucinating.
It has been a long weekend of Magic thus far.
I don't think he has a GJ in his deck, actually. He was just in here talking to us about it. He's got a sort of body and mind in his deck.
So far,
there's a Jason there. It's hard to know, his cards are foil, too, so many of them.
Yeah. Rishon Ports. And here comes the Goblin Matron. Oh, sorry, my bad. A War Chief. Chieftain, I should say. Reducing the cost of all future goblins by 1, as long as it's alive, giving them all haste.
Elizabeth on Twitter points out that she says it's Jim Davis's birthday today. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but happy birthday if it is.
Yeah, happy birthday if it is true.
I'll find out if it's true. Hold on a second. Let's find out.
The polite version of Patrick Chapin's other claim was that Legacy has only survived so long because of a gentleman's agreement to play bullcrap.
Yeah, it is in fact Jim Davis's birthday today. So happy birthday, Jim Davis.
Happy birthday, Jim Davis.
I'm sure he would love to bring a trophy home for his birthday.
Next to the side event registration area. $10 drop number 1.
Still waiting to see if this goblin resolves.
Let's see what happens.
I do think that's a batter skull in his hand still.
Yeah, I think that's better. So he's got one main deck and another one in his sideboard.
It's good. The goblin is in play. In they come. I predict we're going to see a swords on on one of those creatures, and then the Dark Confident might or might not block. I would predict the swords would hit the lackey if only one of them is going down. If they're both going down, then it doesn't actually matter which is swords at this moment. The problem with not killing that chief is that if you leave it alone, it's not only just a Fires of Yavimaya for you, it's also like a Llanowar elf, in a sense. It's mana acceleration, in addition to making the clock get really fast.
Legacy players.
Swords on the lackey.
That's good. The lackey just has to go. Absolutely. That card is just so powerful. I mean, putting a free goblin into play, it just cheats so much mana.
The question is, does he block the chief or not? And I think that's an open question. He takes it. Edgar Flores, interestingly, has not been playing Magic long enough to remember when Goblins was last powerful.
Yeah, he might not know how to play against Goblins as well as a lot of other players might. We'll see what happens.
I actually think it might be worth watching. Did we get a reveal from the Bob? I don't think we got a reveal.
Hey,
Judge.
Yeah. Did he forget to flip on Dark Confidant? I'm not sure. I was actually doing a tweet and I looked away for a second.
Yeah, I didn't see anything revealed. Maybe I just missed it.
It was a land.
Okay.
That's taken care of.
Yeah, I didn't even see it. Now, bouncing that chief is like a very valuable way to just blunt the damage that chief would do. It can come right back down. Edgar Flores is tapped out, but the damage in a certain sense is just alleviated because it's not going to be able to cause the same ruckus that it had would otherwise cause.
Man.
Goblins, unlike most red decks, has very few ways to deal damage that don't involve attacking.
Right, I mean, you have Gem Palm, Incinerator, which is the main way, but you have for Goblins to play for that to work.
And table 79, Matt Scott and Robert Lee. Please report to the Liliana table, Matt Scott and Robert Lee. Thank you.
Let's see, Wasteland comes down. 3. Goblin Warchief.
Attack. Block with the Confidants. And we have this Jace that's there unmolested, just waiting, and again, without active direct damage style spells. Jim Davis is going to have to rely on either a Ringleader or a War Chief to get rid of that Jace next turn, which is only a few cards in his deck against an untapped blue-based deck.
So Goblins, those who haven't been around long enough to, or really seen the deck play out, it hasn't been as popular in recent years. The War Chief and Lackey and Aether Vial are some of the 3 most powerful cards in the deck. Ringleader is obviously very good too, as like a draw 4 and a beatdown deck. You can sometimes out card advantage the control decks, but War Chief makes everything. Cost 1 less and gives it haste. Lackey, when it hits your opponent, lets you put free creatures onto the battlefield, free goblins. Aether Vial speeds up your clock, much like how it does with Merfolk. Lets you, just gives you so much free mana. And the deck is a beatdown deck, unlike no other beatdown deck ever around.
Well, one of the things about Goblins is that a Goblin deck actually can out-card advantage so many other decks that you consider like the more traditional control decks. It has tutors, it has a red Factor Fiction in the form of Goblin Ringleader.
Joining us in the booth for some guest commentary is Drew11.
Hey guys.
Are you not playing the Legacy Open today?
No, I'm definitely playing the Legacy Open. I'm not looking at the deck list. You guys don't have them anyway.
I mean, this is also invitational. So.
Well, yeah, it's also the invitational.
You're safe.
So, thought I left my deck in Jerry's room. Turns out that I just lost it.
So in play on Edgar Flores' side of the table, we now have two
Legacy
Stoneforge
players, welcome
Mystics.
to round 2. You have 50
Drew Levin's man who knows a little bit about
minutes.
Stoneforge Mystic.
Yeah.
And
So Edgar is basically just playing a blue, black, white Stoneforge deck, yeah?
Yeah.
it's got Dark Confidant and Bitter Blossom.
The 4th mana comes down, Ringleader.
Yep. That's-
Again,
yeah.
he has that extra land open just in case there's a Daze to be worried about. He's
How
played
many-
around
is that-
Stifle and Daze.
Oh.
That was a
Hit
total
3
whiff.
lands. All 4?
Oh,
No,
there's
no,
one.
he gets
Yeah,
three.
It was
one.
off camera. He got one goblin, but we couldn't see it because it was off camera.
Oh. That not so sad. I think it was an Incinerator.
Now, if this was Owen
Looks like
Turtenwald,
that's
that
what
would
it
have been at least 3 or 4 goblins.
Owen is the man who knows his goblins and is friends with the Ringleader.
It was actually hard work talking him into playing goblins at the Legacy Grand Prix that he got second. But
Well, I mean,
Was that GP Flash?
yeah,
I mean,
well,
I
fair.
can't imagine trying to have a hard time talking someone into playing goblins in a format where someone can just get comboed out on their upkeep.
yeah, exactly.
well, he hadn't played the Flash deck enough to feel confident in it, and I was like, play the deck you know. And I believe Ian DeGraff and Tommy Collowitz finally talked him into it. And we get a draw from Edgar, and then followed up by a Brainstorm effect from the Jace. Jace casts such good spells. There are no Inferno Titans in this deck, but, you know, he's almost got enough mana to cast one. I would love to see those big monsters come into Legacy. They're way too expensive, but it'd be fun. Okay, Stoneforge Mystic.
Another one.
This
Yeah,
is the third one. What is that?
Body and
Body and
Mind.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Body.
The foil on Edgar Flores makes it always really fun to see.
Yeah. Body and Mind. He said. I talked to him. He said Body and Minds have been really good for him. A lot of the guys last week played Body and Mind because it's just good against Jace. A lot of the blue X people are playing. Did you Body and Mind in your 75, Drew? Or
No,
you just getting Batter Skull?
Yeah, I was getting Batter Skull
Okay.
and at the GP Sword of Feast and Famine.
Okay.
I see a Ringleader, a Pile Driver, and I think I see an Incinerator in Jim Davis's hand, but I'm not sure about the Incinerator. There's a Matron as well.
So does Edgar have the Batter Skull in his hand?
Yes.
Okay, so Jim just has no good attacks, right?
Yeah. I don't think Jim can really afford to attack here. Or if with. I mean, he doesn't have any creatures yet, but if he were.
Down comes the Matron, the demonic tutor practically for Jim Davis. These days, are there any non-goblins other than land in a goblin deck?
Aether Vial.
Aether Vial, there we go,
Yeah.
which is land, which is
Yeah.
super land.
Right, yeah, it's just goblins and mana sources. A bunch of people have always advocated adding, edicts or bolts or whatever, but diluting Ringleader just isn't worth it. So he gets another Ringleader. He
Now-
understands that he's going to have to swarm Edgar
Yeah.
to get through the last couple points.
His plan right here is essentially just to try to have so many cards, pardon me, that it'll overwhelm what Edgar has going on, which, that's a fun thought, but I mean, a Batter Skull is probably going to hit the table in a moment.
Yeah. I mean, as long as Edgar can not get hit by Goblin Pile Driver, he's pretty fine.
And down comes the skull with a little germ on it. And he does not like the germ that was offered by Jim Davis. He's got his own germ.
Which is himself.
Yes.
I guess that answers the question, who is your 0/0 germ token for this weekend? Edgar Flores prefers himself.
We get a Brainstorm also at the end of the turn. Looks like land, daze, and a third card I can't make out.
I think it was another land.
Puts them both back. He
Yeah.
has the Flooded Strand.
Shuffles those away.
Not a literal, but a practical ancestral recall. In hand, he still has sort of Body and Mind, and I don't remember if he had the Sword of Fire and Ice in his deck or not.
No, most players only play the blue-green or the blue-red sword.
Jace not looking too good versus Pile Driver and Matron in terms of the unsummon ability, but looking still pretty good with his other spells.
Yeah,
He's
just
got
brainstorm every turn,
Yeah,
really.
he's got 3 spells he can cast that are, at least right now. Oh, bounce your tutor.
Ooh. Interesting.
Well, I mean, Jim Davis is bound by mana. He only has 6 mana, and with his hand, he can only cast 1 of those spells in the coming turn.
Yeah.
Now, Ringleader obviously can fill him up with the potential for more spells, and a 7th land. If he draws the 7th land, then he can do the double threat with the Ringleader plus the Matron.
Yeah. I mean, he really needs a War Chief here.
Yeah, the loss of the Chief from earlier was a big blow. The Goblins plays 2 entirely different games depending on whether there's a Chief in play or not.
Yeah. And having a medallion is just huge for them.
The Germ comes in. And Jim Davis sucks it up. Takes 6,
Mills
loses
10.
10 cards, and then there's a Wild Wolf hanging out as a defender. Wow, is that a mental misstep?
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, Matt Elias, we found your mental misstep goblins.
Wow. That is a real surprise to me. Mental Misstep is good at fighting other mental missteps as well. And we see a Bitter Blossom from Edgar Flores, which is actually deeply effective against goblins because goblins, they have to attack as their means of killing for the most part. And just having random chump blockers that you don't mind throwing away can really put a dent in the power of a card like Goblin Piledriver.
Well, and also, it's just not even a liability with Batterskull.
I don't believe that Jim drew a land there. Nope. We see Ringleader hoping to get a lot of cheap things. And again, we can't see what those are. What do we get? A
Incinerator and...
Is that a Matron? No, it's not a Matron.
It's got to be Tinkerer if he's reading it. Oh,
no,
Skirk
Prospector.
Prospector.
Wow, that's exciting. Skirk Prospector makes me wonder if there's a Sharpshooter in that list.
Yeah, there's definitely got to be.
I haven't seen a Prospector in a long time. That excites me. That's pretty cool. Jim Davis, full of tech.
Mental Misstep, Skirk Prospector.
Incinerator, going
Incinerate
for one of the
yours.
Stone Forges, drawing a card. Now the thing about Jim Davis's life total, for a deck like Goblins, Goblins establishes itself on the board when it goes for the kill. It doesn't actually need to really worry about the Batterskull in terms of its own life. What it really hurts is that it might mean that one attack won't take care of Edgar.
Right. Well, and also that it clocks them while also being a blocker. Because ultimately you want to be able to have enough attackers that you can get a Piledriver through, and that's generally lethal.
Getting a Piledriver through right now on Edgar Flores' board looks pretty difficult.
Yeah. Pretty unlikely. Edgar looks to have this one pretty well in hand. I'm not sure what Jim's playing to.
I actually think the game is still an open question. For example, let's pretend that Jim gets...
Wow.
It is a him. Wow.
Let's pretend that Jim...
Let's pretend that Jim gets out a Chief, a Prospector, and a Sharpshooter. I think that he can... Well, and then he has to ringlead as well. I mean, his clock isn't so fast that that's not that's not impossible for him. I mean, it's like, what, 2 turns to get, like, the ringleader into something else?
Yeah.
And actually, if he has a Chief, he can Chief ringleader right away.
Yeah. He lost the Prospector, though.
Oh, that's actually...
Rats.
That takes out, I think, the path that Jim needed. Because I think he needs a Sharpshooter in the mix in order to come back from this game.
Yeah. Well, and especially, like, I assume he's going to just have to go over the top and not attack from here, right? I mean, do you see a way of him getting damage through on the ground?
I mean, The ground is so gummed up. And then Thought sees, what's your best card? You've got a tutor, you've got a pile driver, and you've got an incinerator. That's not a great hand.
Right?
The tutor.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, but you take
Goblin matron. Yeah, you take the matron. And there it goes. Moves the sword back over to a fresh token. And drew a spell. Can't tell what it is yet.
It's not a mental misstep.
Yeah, a red creature spell. Okay, Incinerator for 1. Not very exciting, but it does get you a spell in. Pile Driver is completely not exciting, and he's got a 3rd spell in his hand. He's counting. So
Am I dead?
That's a sharpshooter he's drawn.
Oh. But he needs the War Chief to really turn it on.
So his play then here is probably got to be Pile Driver, Sharpshooter, go. And then what's the God draw that you can get to not die in the subsequent follow-up turn?
Ringleader into Prospector plus Mog War Marshal.
I like that. I like that. That's nice. There exists a potential sequence of plays for a theoretical Goblin deck that might have certain cards.
Yeah. That's the only way that he stays in this game.
Now Edgar Flores reading the card.
Days it.
The second, the Pile Driver Dazed, which actually puts a real crank in Jim Davis's how do I survive scenario. Jim Davis not giving up yet. I mean, there's a narrow window, even if it is pretty not so great.
Yeah.
Now note, the Jace as an unsummon would make any hope that Jim has of coming out of this go away.
Yeah, no, if he unsummons Sharpshooter here, I'm pretty sure Jim's dead.
Yeah, I mean, Jim's probably dead, period.
Yeah.
But,
turns the 2%er into a 0%er.
Right. The ESPN checkmark would suddenly be raised up.
Yeah.
Jim Davis, one of 2 players in day 2 playing Goblins. The other player had 0 wins in Legacy on day 1. Jim Davis, 3-1.
Jim Davis is just a stone cold master. Yeah, there we go.
Scoops it up. The formalities are over. And now, from the sideboard, it's very likely that we're going to see some particular answers to a Stoneblade style of deck. I mean, this deck is not an unknown factor, and Jim Davis is a experienced Goblin player who well knows what it means to alter your deck around in order to accommodate new popular decks.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, I do believe I saw a Taiga, so he might have 10th Street Hooligan main, but probably more on the board. One thing to note, we also, if you want to be one of the people that are under the lights here, under the camera, playing for $50,000, a share of $50,000, you can be a part of it too, all over the United States of America. If your store gets involved in the Invitational Qualifier program, you can go to starcitygames.com/IQ and find a store near you. And there are a lot of players that are playing here. They played in a store qualifier. These events are often fairly small. Get an invitation to play in the big show here, and, you know, maybe walk home with a lot of money.
Yeah, I actually saw someone that I hadn't seen before at table 5 just this past round, and I turned to one of my friends and I said, "Who's that?" And he said, "Oh yeah, it's a guy from Tennessee who won an IQ." So, you know, very realistic that you actually make a very deep run in the Invitational.
I mean, the thing about this, right, is that if you think that you've got the game to come and play, if you've been watching people play from at home and you're like, man, I could totally beat these guys.
Yeah, come beat
Well,
us.
come beat them. And definitely one of the things that when you're railbirding and, you know, watching Magic, you often see so many mistakes that people make because it's easier when there's no pressure on you, and when you get the opportunity to see players' hands, like both players' hands oftentimes, even if you're not trying to, sometimes you start seeing things in a way where like you got a bigger, more bird's eye view, and the mistakes that players make are so much more obvious. But under the pressure of the lights, when you've been playing all day, it can be much harder to see those mistakes, and much easier just to make small gaffes.
Yeah.
Okay. Shuffling up. Now, I would be more willing to bet that Jim Davis has very dedicated pinpoint cards for this type of matchup than Edgar Flores does. Edgar Flores,
I somehow doubt he's packing Engineered Plague.
Yeah,
today.
Engineered Plague is a solid card against Merfolk and Goblins, but with Goblins seeing so little play lately, Engineered Plague, the draw for it becomes all the less potent.
Yeah. I feel like the matchup is really going to revolve around the presence of Batterskull. Because without Batterskull, Edgar is playing a deck with very few blockers, and you know, not a whole lot of ways to put pressure on his opponent before his opponent, you know, just builds a huge ground army and kills him.
From a pure archetype analysis, Jim Davis is essentially playing a mid-range aggro deck, despite how fast it is. What does it do? It puts things onto the table and kills you with things on the table. And Edgar Flores is playing a mid-range control deck.
Right.
Put things onto the table and try to preserve the life total.
Yeah.
So
really just a battle of two mid-range decks where, you know, Edgar is probably going to get a lot from his Planeswalkers living, and Jim's going to get a lot from, you know, all of his 187 creatures.
Mental Misstep in Jim Davis's opening hand.
Oh boy.
Fun quote from Edgar Flores from a little bit earlier, just a few minutes ago, before this match started. I don't think Force of Will is that good anymore. It's a 2-for-1. Mental Misstep is just better.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, wasn't I talking with Brian Kibler about that in Boston, and he said, where do you make room for it? I said, well, first of all, you reload the blue decks, and second of all, I might just replace Force of Will.
You know, it's funny that you should say that, because what won the Grand Prix?
Deck with 4 Mental Missteps and 0 Force Wills, I
Right,
believe.
that's correct. And it's interesting, too. I was trying to build a variant on High Tide before I came this weekend, just to have it around to play.
Yeah.
And I worked really hard to stuff Force of Wills into it, and I still am not sure if that's correct.
Yeah, I mean, it might not be. I'm not sure what you're that afraid of anymore, except for Mental Misstep.
Jim Davis on the play. Mulliganing to 6. Goblins is actually fairly good at mulliganing because of the power of Lackey and Vial, meaning less land is necessary, and Ringleader and Matron finding Ringleader to refill the hand.
Yeah, we've got a land and 2 Ether Vials, so he's got misstep protection.
Vial. Now, Edgar Flores' deck does not have very many counterspells. He has Misstep and Daze, and I don't know that he has anything else.
I mean, I don't know that Edgar's deck is that scared of an Ether Vial per se. It's much more concerned with what comes out of the Ether Vial. That said, of course, you know, if you have an opportunity to misstep the Vial, you take it.
Yeah, the Vial just represents mana.
Right.
And much like in Standard, where you often kill the birds, kill the elves, it's very similar for Aether Vial. It represents a lot of potential mana. Not to mention the tricksy nature of Aether Vial at the end of the turn, or at any inopportune moment for your opponent.
Yeah.
We're going to see a very different game here. In the first game, Jim Davis struggled to get a Lackey in play. The Lackey never connected. And here, there are definitely going to be creatures hitting play. And the creatures, we're definitely going to see a different interaction between these two decks now.
Is that Scrubland?
Yes.
So he fetches Scrubland. He's going to go Tundra Stoneforge.
Probably.
C Stoneforge.
Now, Edgar Flores' deck has Thoughtseize and him, and in a lot of ways, and Dark Confidant, in a lot of ways, with the Daze and Mental Misstep, it kind of looks like he took out the green from a certain kind of bug deck and added in Stoneforges instead.
Yeah. I mean, I was talking with Tom Martell at the GP, and Tom had a deck that was very similar to that. It had 2 basics, where the bug deck has none. But, you know, it had Stoneforge Mystic instead of Tarmogoyf. And he liked it. He almost top 16'd.
Jim Davis increments both of his Aether Vials and says go.
Edgar draws Swords to Plowshares.
End of the turn. Down comes Pile Driver. And nothing else. Incrementing up to 2 and a 3?
Maybe he
or
just
2 and a 4?
Maybe he just incremented to 3, left 1 on 2, and went 1 to 3 to shortcut it.
Oh, that's fair. That's fair. Rishadan Port puts down
Yep.
the Chief. And as we said before, the existence of Chief in the deck radically can change how the deck plays out. And that looks like another Chief?
Yep.
And now a single Swords to Plowshares doesn't turn off this path that exists.
Yeah. So Jim's got all of the mana that he
And
needs.
he says go. He knows that there's a Batterskull that's waiting in the wings. So Batterskull, Stoneforge Mystic, 3 lands versus 3 lands, 2 Chiefs, a Pile Driver, and a pair of Aether Vials. A Swords, or is that a path?
Yeah, that's a Swords.
Takes out one of the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Now, interestingly, Jim Davis has access to Pyroblast, but there are very few blue things that Edgar might play that are of note. 10 Street Hooligan and Croson Grip are far more likely to make their work on Edgar Flores. On the other side, an extra Batterskull seems more than reasonable, and
Dark Blast.
Perhaps Dark Blast and Path. Path is dangerous against goblins, even though it does in one way blunt their tempo right now. It pushes them for more later. Oh, look at there. That's almost the exact opposite of what we saw with the last ringleader, where it was only 1. Here he gets a Matron and 2 others. I didn't quite...
Lackey and Warchief.
Matron, Lackey, and Warchief. What is his chief split? 4 Goblin Warchiefs and
No
4 Goblin Warchiefs.
No Chieftains.
One of the previously successful Goblin decks we saw at, I think, Boston, had the 4 Goblin Warchiefs, 1 Chieftain, and 1 King. The King in the sideboard. Almost feels like it came from another era.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you just really want to beat Zoo at that point, right?
And here comes a...
Here comes the team?
I think he might put down a little bit more first. Incinerate.
Ooh, Incinerate the
Incinerate.
token.
You cannot counter that. Do you have a I don't think Edgar has Stifle.
No Stifles in this list.
And we see...
The removal spell and response. That is going to make it quite a bit worse.
Yep. All it is draw a card.
Yep.
Now, if you're Jim Davis, the Path to Exile hits his chief. If you're Jim Davis, you can attack here with everything if you'd like, and if the Batterskull blocks, you will kill the Batterskull with whichever thing he blocks.
Right.
But in so doing, you are going to lose whatever creature that is, and you're basically going to keep the life totals at roughly the same. Now, draw from the gem palm.
Oh, that was a good draw.
Was that a ringleader?
Yep.
Nice.
I feel like you just have to zone here.
Leaves the lackey back.
So he just blocks pile driver here, right?
He's threatening for 5.
I mean, if you block either one, your thing dies.
I mean, looking at Jim Davis's life, I mean, I know he's not at 1, but is he at maybe 19? I'm not sure what his life total is. Because I mean, it's probably 19, maybe it's 20 for Jim Davis's life. A land for Edgar Flores.
And a token, more importantly,
Bitter
actually.
Blossom. That 5th land means that
he can
return the Batter Skull and lay it right back down as an instant.
Yep.
Okay, 4 mana.
Violin Ringleader.
Let's see what this Ringleader gives us.
Another
Ringleader. And is that a
Pile driver?
Yeah.
This is Goblins. So his big attack step is probably next turn. Doesn't really like what he sees.
Edgar Flores is incrementally just pushing things into the table, just holding back the ability of a Goblin deck to take his throat from afar.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the real breakout card in this format is Batter Skull.
Oh, yeah.
I think that the reason that Stoneforge Mystic has gotten so good is, and gone to the next level, is because of the existence of a 4/4 Vigilance Lifelink with rebuy.
I mean, when you have when your Squire, the Stoneforge Mystic, can go basically get a slightly variant Baneslayer Angel.
Well,
you know?
Well, and Demonic Tutor plus Ether Violet for 2 mana.
Yep. This almost makes me wonder if, you know, Green and Taxes,
Yeah.
or Junk and Taxes decks
Yeah.
can get a little supercharged because of Batterskull.
I think that almost anything can get supercharged because of Batter Skull. I mean, did you see John Del Beatty's list from yesterday that went undefeated in the
Oh, yeah,
Legacy
yeah,
portion
yeah,
with-
the Affinity deck.
Yeah, with Stoneforge Mystic.
Yeah, I know that in Seattle player Jacob Janoska has been saying, don't tell anybody, but Affinity with Stoneforge Mystic is insane. And,
I mean, like, I think that you actually don't need anything but Stoneforge Mystic is insane. And, you know, whether your flavor is Cranial Plating, Dark Confidant, Jason the Mind Sculptor, or Hymn to Torok.
And we have right here a tutoring with the Matron getting a Incinerator. The Incinerator being cycled to kill the Stoneforge Mystic. Now there are no creatures in play besides a single token.
Wait, did he do that in response to the return ability on the Batter Skull?
I believe so.
That was just loose on Edgar's part. You definitely activate Mystic and then respond by activating Batter Skull. Which is why I was a little curious why he didn't break his fetch land on his main phase, so that he could just do that line without getting blown out.
A Fairy comes into play. Another Fairy attacks. Batterskull comes down. Cast the Fairway.
Yeah.
And now, though, I mean, there are so many cards in Jim's hand. Is that another Incinerator?
Yep.
Oh, Doctor. Okay, Ringleader. We're getting 4 cards revealed. Oh, there's another Ringleader and another Matron.
Yep. This is definitely not looking good for Edgar.
And look at that. He has 6 cards in his hand.
Yeah.
And at least 3 of those cards replaced themselves.
Yeah. Ah, yes.
Incinerate the token. And if he has a chief in his hand, he just
does.
kills him.
He does. The chief is going to come in.
That's sick. I don't think he has the chief.
I thought he ringleadered into it. Guess not.
Okay.
Invitational players.
Attacking here for 8. A fairy blocks the lackey.
At 12:25. So you'll have a 10-minute break
goes
again.
to
So the standard
11.
portion will start at 12:25.
Another fairy token.
Oh, it was a Mog War Marshal and another pile driver.
You know, I have to wonder. It seems like this game's been going on a while. I have to
Yeah.
wonder if
They're going to have
if
time
they're
for
going to
game
time.
3?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Batterskull
Equips to a fairy token and
right
sends.
there. 5 mana. Makes a 5/5.
You know, I always forget that Batterskull actually has an equip ability.
Right.
I always just expect people to rebuy it, and it's always a little surprising when people pay 5 mana and equip it.
End of the turn. I believe it's going to be a a matron. Probably going to get a chief, maybe a Tin Street Hooligan. He doesn't have the green for the Hooligan though. He needs to have a fetch land or top deck the Taiga.
Yeah.
He's got 2 Taigas in his deck.
Oh no, just another incinerator.
Yep, Incinerator's fine. You can incinerate away the fairy token.
Edgar's just very dead here.
There's the Taiga. And down comes
Another ringleader.
There we go.
All 4.
Let's see what happens. 1, 2, 3. Oh, look at that. It's a 10th Street Hooligan. A little bit of shaking. Shaking does not indicate... this is a false tell people sometimes have. There goes the Hooligan killing the Batterskull. Shaking does
Incinerate
not,
the token, you're dead.
Yep. Total kill here. Shaking does not usually indicate for most people that they are in a bad position. It usually just indicates excitement.
Yeah. I mean, I know that Patrick Chapin shakes very, very often when he plays, and it's very hard to get a read on exactly why, given how consistently he does so. So I guess a white removal spell is going to hit the, pile driver.
And
We'll
path
merely
to
take
exile.
10 and go to 4. Oh no, I guess he can block the matrons. Jim being very patient with this attack step, holding his incinerators for...
The cards that matter.
Yeah. Instead of just incinerating away the fairy tokens and losing to exactly this.
The token goes to Edgar's yard, literally. Another lackey joins the table. 2 mana available.
And he's going to port him. Oh no.
Oh, no. Mog War Marshal. Daze stops the War Marshal. and the token is buried by the Daze.
Yeah.
Scoops it on up.
Yeah.
Can we inform the judge that there's a token right now in Edgar's deck? Okay. Game 3 now. So, do you think anything changes before you step out? Do you think that anything changes for Edgar Flores after seeing Goblins play out? Like we said before, Edgar is not particularly experienced in Legacy yet, and this is an older deck in a certain sense. Does he?
I feel like his plan is just board control and try to stick as many Batterskulls as possible, and he has a pretty good plan there.
So he has the right plan.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for joining us.
Thanks very much. I'm gonna get ready for round 3 of the Legacy Open.
And go get him.
Good luck. Thanks.
Well, and we're back. And by we, I just mean me. But there's 2 of me. I'm so awesome.
Yeah, I think that the royal we is acceptable for you, Gavin. I
Fair
understand if you feel very regal in your, countenance. So
I do enjoy a good regal force. All right, so Going heading into game 3 here. It looks like Edgar Flores is going to be on the play. These guys are running out of time, so they're shuffling up quickly.
Mulligan from Jim Davis.
And you can see Jim Davis just slams that hand back in there quickly, doesn't think about it, shuffles. Probably not going to do a pile shuffle, just going to present.
Of these two decks, Jim Davis has the advantage on low time. Jim Davis can much more easily win in a short window of time than Edgar Flores can.
I mean, Batter Skill certainly helps win quickly if necessary, but Jim Davis easily has the advantage. Is that 5 cards?
5 cards. Aether Vial and some stuff.
And some lands. Not what Jim Davis wants
Edgar,
to see.
land, go.
War Chief, it's a good pluck.
And fetch, finds Aether Vial, shortcuts to get a mountain.
Oh, Croson Grip in there.
Edgar fetches end of turn. Gets a Underground Sea. Brainstorm. Swords to Plowshares and a Daze amongst double Swords to Plowshares amongst his cards. A Mental Missteps the Aether Vial.
Oh, good call. Misstep down.
He says go.
Wastelands Underground Sea.
And go.
Edgar has no more lands.
Land and a Pile Driver.
Pile Driver's gonna. That Pile Driver's got a lot of work to do.
There we go. A Flooded Strand.
And double swords in Edgar's hand is gonna be more than enough to deal with that.
Down comes a War Marshal. I'm not sure about laying that Wasteland before casting that. I mean, I think you don't mind a Daze happening there. But now Edgar knows, for example, that, oh, he just goes and gets it.
Do I think Edgar doesn't have any non-basics?
Maybe he doesn't. Let's check really quick. Edgar does not have any non-basics. It doesn't matter.
There you go. So greedy. Nobody plays with the Wastelands, right?
Well, like I said, I was told by somebody else that they did a count, and under 50%, or rather, the average number of Wastelands in the Legacy deck, according to their count, was something like 1.8.
Alright, so it gets Dazed, and then the Pile Driver gets Swords to Plowshares. And Edgar's in such a rough land situation. But he drew a new land. He's got a Marsh Flats.
Yeah, there's the card he searched for. Okay.
Alright, Jim Davis draws Ringleader.
And there's the Swords for the War Marshal.
And no token for Jim Davis. Pays the Echo cost of that War Marshal, though. And Wasteland down that land. And Edgar has another land in Marsh Flats. Lackey, oh my. That Lackey has to be dealt with immediately, otherwise it's going to drop a Ringleader into play. Edgar has a mental misstep in his hand, though.
Right now, it's like what Edgar is doing essentially is just trying to suppress.
Invitational players, time on the round.
There we go.
Active player finished the current turn.
And
that was turn 0 for Jim Davis.
Yeah, as long
As a reminder, the next round for the Invitational will begin at 12:25.
as long as Edgar just makes sure Jim doesn't do anything crazy, this game's going to be a draw.
Yeah.
He's going to draw.
War Chief gets dazed, I believe. Daze.
Yep.
In for 1. And a Path to Exile.
The token? Yep. I think that's a swords, but
Maybe
yeah.
that was a swords? Okay.
He's got another swords in his hand? Huh.
Croson Grip from Jim Davis. That's a draw, my friends.
And I think that's going to be that. They're looking. Alright. Incinerator, go.
Incinerator can become a 2/1 creature. It's not its job usually. And he gets dazed.
Alright. Oh. Alright, yeah.
Okay.
That's it. Alright, so.
Oh, Edgar, not happy. Does not want that draw.
I think he probably felt like he threw away game 2 somewhere, right?
I don't think he threw away game 2 any. Well, the moment that Drew 11 pointed out, where he had 5 land out, there was a